and he's very much, he's dived deep into Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, in remembering and hearing about the pastimes of the Lord. And Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring further and further and further of Krishna's pastimes. And Parikshit Maharaj, at one point, he inquired from Śrutadeva Goswami of how his grandmother, Subhadrā Maharani, and about her story of, how she was kidnapped and everything. And Parikshit Maharaj wanted to hear this from Śrutadeva Goswami. Parikshit Maharaj was inquiring. And for those of you who don't know how Subhadrā Maharani is the grandmother of Parikshit Maharaj, right? Parikshit Maharaj's father is Abhimanyu and mother is Putra. And Abhimanyu's uncle is Kṛṣṇa, like that. And Subhadrā Maharani is the sister of Kṛṣṇa. So you have like 3 generations. And one really important thing is that, many times we see Subhadrā Maharani with Jagannath and Baldev. So we think of Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadrā Maharani. But generally, when we look at Subhadrā Maharani on the altar, we don't really think of, okay, this is actually the wife of Arjuna. We don't think like that generally. We just think of, there's a 3 sets. We have 2 brothers and 1 sister. And also, yes, Subhadra, because Subhadra is married to Arjun, then their son is Abhimanyu. So like that also, like relation is there. How Parikshit Maharaj's grandmother is Subhadra Maharani. The story starts off with Arjuna, who's traveling to many places. He's currently on pilgrimage, and Arjuna comes to find out that Krishna's sister Subhadra's wedding and marriage preparations is currently going on. And as some of you know, that it was mainly Lord Balaram who was planning the occasion of Subhadra's wedding ceremony. And Balaram is like, Balaram Tattva is like the way he thinks, the way his personality is. So Balaram, and it's all pastime, obviously. So Balaram was thinking to get Subhadra married to Duryodhan. And Vasudeva, Devaki, and Krishna himself, they were obviously not favorable towards this decision so much. But you can only kind of poke Lord Balaram only to a certain extent until Krishna, with his sweet words, changes Balaram's decision to do that. And so Arjuna decided that he wanted to accept the hand of Subhadra Devi. And Arjuna has also many times he's seen Mother Subhadra before, and Arjuna was very much captivated by her beauty. And so because Arjuna had this deep desire and Arjuna wanted to kind of get a closer approach on Subhadra Devi, what Arjuna did is something that we should all not do, to approach the opposite gender or anything like that. We shouldn't do that. But so basically what Arjuna did is kind of hilarious when I first read it. Basically, he took the dress of a sannyasi, right? Back in the culture when Varnashram Dharma was instituted in the civilization, Brahmanas have highest regard, highest respect. So, and even now, obviously, we see that Arjuna, he dressed himself as a 3-dandi sannyasi, Prabhupada explains. Mayavadi sannyasis, they have 1 danda, explaining the oneness between the jiva and Brahman, the soul. This is the jiva and the soul. Then there's oneness. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. But the 3-dandi sannyasis, whenever anybody takes sannyas within any of our 4 Vaishnava sampradayas, they take 3-dandi sannyas. The three dandas within that staff represents just become fully surrendered to Krishna and to serve Krishna with one's body, mind, and words. BMW. You can remember it like that: body, minds, and words. So it said that, and that's also the sannyas attire, sannyas type of sannyas for a Vaishnava specifically. So Arjuna took sannyas and he went and approached the quarters of Balaram, and Subhadra Devi was also there with Balaram, because naturally it's important for the Matajis to also serve the sannyasis or any Brahmin or Rishi that comes
to your home. An unexpected guest is like, it's like, Krishna's only sent. It's very special if a devotee comes unexpectedly, especially. So Arjuna comes. Balaram doesn't realize that it's Arjuna in the garb of a sannyasi, but still, so Balaram, he comes. He greets Arjuna to come sit down, and Balaram takes care of this rishi, and Subhadra Devi is also there. And Subhadra Devi, she's analyzing this sannyasi, but Subhadra Devi is already she's understood that this is actually Arjun, and whenever Subhadra Devi and Arjun would look at each other, and whenever they would have this exchange of love, and whenever they would have this moment, Arjun, he's a Kshatriya, right? His body structure, his body type, he's naturally a Kshatriya. He has big arms, he has a broad shoulder. So naturally his whole bodily structure, his entire body is built to be a Kshatriya, to fight in war. So naturally it was very odd for many sannyasis, many Brahmins. Of course, there are Brahmins who have good body, but Arjuna especially, very handsome, very young, you know, for him to take sannyas at that age, it's not so often. It's not the normal thing you see. But anyway, so with the Devi, she recognized that this is Arjuna. And Prabhupada explains actually that Subhadra Devi, the more she was glancing upon Arjun, the more she was getting more attracted. She was feeling more love towards Arjun. And right there, during that time when Balaram was serving Arjun, during that scene, that pastime, Subhadra Devi then itself, Prabhupada's mentioning that she committed, to actually having Arjuna as her husband, and also vice versa. Arjun really wanted Subhadra Devi, wanted her hand. And so like this, the service went on. Balaram served Arjuna as who was in the garb of a sannyasi. Arjuna left. And then Prabhupada explains a few days later on, Subhadra Devi, she goes out for her morning puja, or she goes out to do her daily rituals to Narayan and other demigods, Devi Devatas. And during that time, actually, is when Arjun comes and kidnaps Rukmini. It actually, I'd like to read a short excerpt here from Kṛṣṇa book directly. It's actually quite interesting. I quote, "After getting on Subhadra's chariot, he prepared himself for a fight. Taking up his bow and holding off with his arrows, the soldiers ordered to check him. Arjuna took Subhadra away. While Subhadra was thus kidnapped by Arjuna, her relatives and family members began to cry, but still he took her, just as a lion takes his prey and departs. When it was disclosed to Lord Balaram that the so-called sannyasi was Arjun, so now it's revealed that it's revealed to Lord Balaram that Arjun was actually the sannyasi. He became very angry. Just as the waves of the ocean become agitated on a full moon day, Lord Balaram became greatly disturbed. So everybody kind of knows how this scene goes. And actually, like right before actually kidnapping Subhadra Devi, Arjuna actually first takes the blessings and takes the orders of Vasudeva Devaki and of Kṛṣṇa himself, that please, bless me so that I can, take Subhadra's hand in marriage, because obviously nobody wanted her to go to Duryodhan. And so this is also a really important point. It's not that Arjuna is just completely lusty and he's just completely attracted to Subhadra Devi and he's just kidnapping. This goes on in the movies of today. The boy likes the girls to be married to another boy, then the boy likes a girl, the boy kidnaps a girl. All this thing. So it externally looks kind of similar. However, we have to understand that Arjuna is an eternal associate of Kṛṣṇa, and it's Krishna's instructions itself, for Arjuna to take Subhadra's hand in marriage. So over here, we also see the surrender that Arjuna has towards Kṛṣṇa. They're very good friends, but at the same time, there's times when Arjuna sees Kṛṣṇa as Bhagavan. So as a friend, especially Krishna's, telling Arjuna, and Arjuna responds to Krishna's request and takes Subhadra. So this is basically how it went on, and Balaram got really angry. But Tribhanga Kṛṣṇa, he, using his sweet words, he pacified Balaram. And when Kṛṣṇa starts speaking, what can you do? Balaram has to be pacified, even though Kṛṣṇa is his little brother. Balaram has so much love for Kṛṣṇa. if this is what Krishna wants, then, all right, what can we do? So Arjuna followed Krishna's order, and later on, they both became married, Arjuna and Subhadra. So the next story that Srila Prabhupada is mentioning
is maybe one that you may not have heard of. This is one I personally have not heard of before until I was given the service to speak on this chapter. This is the story of Kṛṣṇa and two pure devotees who are from the city of Mithila, which is the capital of the Vedaha kingdom during that time. The name of the Brahmana is Śrutadeva, and the name of the king is Bahulāśva. Bahulāśva was the king of the city, and Śrutadeva was also a very pure Brahmana who is very surrendered and dedicated to serving Krishna. So the story goes that these two devotees, during their time, place, circumstance, in their city, they were actually considered as very, very, very pure devotees of the Lord. They were completely surrendered. The king was, ruling over the entire city. The Brahmana was living very simply. It is mentioned that the Brahmana, he, according to his destiny, he got only what was needed. He never worked extra more than necessary. Whatever was required for him, however much was required for him to survive, that much he got. The Vaishnava king was taking care of the whole kingdom, and he's a king, so he has all the opulences that a king has during those times, which is a lot, like a lot. So but still, despite having these opulences, the king is considered very, very pure. And Prabhupada talks about how, you have a Brahmana and a Vaishnava Brahmana. A Brahmana, there's one Prabhupada in Śrīmad Bhagavatam, please forgive me, I don't remember. But I do very remember, I read this very clearly, that there's two types of Brahmana, Vaishnava Brahmana. Brahmana is basically one who's situated on the platform of Sattvagun, who is very much, attached to rituals and waking up in the morning and praying to the Devi Devtas and whatnot. And Vaishnava Brahmana is somebody who's, who's according to the Varnashram system, he's qualified to be a Brahmana, he's engaging in the activities of what a Brahmana engages in. At the same time, he's situated on the platform of Vishuddha Sattva, or his goal is to become a fully realized pure Vaishnava, a pure devotee of Krishna. So these two devotees are very, very, very pure devotees. And Kṛṣṇa was, walking through different cities with many great devotees of his own. It's mentioned here. Lord Kṛṣṇa was, I didn't put all the names here because it'll just be too much, but I'll read it quickly from this paragraph here in Kṛṣṇa book. Lord Kṛṣṇa was accompanied by the great sages Narada, Vamadev, Atri, Vyasadev, Parshuram, Ashita, Aruni, Shukadev, Brihaspati, Kanva, Maitreya, Chyavana, and others. Lord Kṛṣṇa and the sages passed through many villages and towns, and everywhere the citizens would receive them with great respect and offer them articles to worship. And it is said that Kṛṣṇa and all these rishis, all these sages, they passed through many kingdoms such as Anartha, Danva, Kuru Jangala, Kanka, Matsya, Panchala, Kunti, Madhu, Kekaya, Kaushala, and Arna. And wherever Kṛṣṇa would go, all the men, the women, the children, excuse me, they would just be completely, dumbstruck and completely astounded at the beautiful face of Kṛṣṇa. You just look at Kṛṣṇa and you can't even close your eyes. Your jaw drops to the ground. The gopis, they blame Brahma. Why you created these eyelids? These eyelids are hindering us, in fully meditating on Kṛṣṇa. This millisecond, blink of that your eyelid does, it blinks for a millisecond. This is completely unnecessary. The gopis blame Brahma. Why did you create us like this? So Kṛṣṇa is so beautiful wherever Kṛṣṇa would go. And also same way, Krishna's devotees, Narada, Vyasa, Sukadeva, so all of these, they're all completely so pure, completely enlightened, pure devotees of the Lord. All the citizens of different kingdoms would just love to just completely meditate and stare upon the beautiful faces of Krishna and his devotees. Drinking nectar through their eyes, as Prabhupada mentions. And then as they go through the different kingdoms, Krishna comes to this kingdom of Videha, where these two personalities reside. And
when the news came that Kṛṣṇa is here in their kingdom, they made all sorts of grand preparations to invite them. And Kṛṣṇa, obviously, when Kṛṣṇa comes, obviously Kṛṣṇa is going to meet with the king. So Kṛṣṇa meets with King Śrutadeva, Bahulāśva, and Bahulāśva invites Kṛṣṇa to his palace and serves Kṛṣṇa in many ways. And also simultaneously, it is mentioned that Kṛṣṇa also came across the Brahmana, came across Śrutadeva. And that simultaneously, actually, Kṛṣṇa was with both of them at the same time. And Bahulāśva didn't know that, Kṛṣṇa was also with this Brahmana Śrutadeva, and Śrutadeva didn't know that he was with the king Bahulāśva. Kṛṣṇa was with the king. So Kṛṣṇa was simultaneously, at the same time, accepting service from both these personalities. And both the personalities didn't know that, Kṛṣṇa was with the other person as well at the same time. And this is actually called Vaibhav Prakasha, where Kṛṣṇa expands himself and accepts service in that same form, but Kṛṣṇa expands himself. That same form where Kṛṣṇa expands himself to accept services from many devotees simultaneously during different times, same times, etc. And one example is, it's an error, I put 12,108, but 16,108 queens. Kṛṣṇa would expand himself, and simultaneously with all the queens in all their own separate respective palaces, Kṛṣṇa would accept service from the queens of Dwarka. So same tattva, same philosophy, we can, Prabhupada is also mentioning here with the two personalities. And it's mentioned the king's offering and the Brahmana's offering. The Brahmana, I'll start with the Brahmana. The Brahmana actually, like I mentioned earlier, the Brahmana is very, not completely poor, but he only has what's needed for his own survival. And I'm actually trying to find it here. Prabhupada explains in detail what the Brahmana was offering. Because many times, obviously when a guest comes, it's your duty to, give them certain items and offer them certain articles, certain paraphernalia for their satisfaction. I'll start with the king. I found the kings. It said here the king Bahulāśva's mind was very restless, not because of any problems, but because of great ecstasy of love and devotion. His heart was filled with love and affection for the Lord and his associates, and his eyes were filled with tears of ecstasy. This is why these devotees are so pure, because they have ecstasy in their heart. When they look at Kṛṣṇa, tears are flowing, they're pouring out of their eyes. He washed the feet of his divine guests, Kṛṣṇa and the other rishis, and Afterwards, he and his family members sprinkled the water on their own heads. After this, he offered the guests nice flower garlands, sandalwood pulp, incense, new garments, ornaments, lamps, cows, and bulls. In a manner just befitting his royal position, he worshipped each one of them in this way. This is a very important point Prabhupada is mentioning here, that based on the king's position, based on everything that he has, he is implementing everything that he has for the service of Kṛṣṇa. He is surrendering all the fruits of his actions to Kṛṣṇa, all the results that he gets by acting as a king, by serving, his citizens, all the opulence that he has, he's using it in the service of Kṛṣṇa. The king and his entire family, his entire entourage is there serving Kṛṣṇa and Kṛṣṇa's devotees, all the guests. And like this, Kṛṣṇa is accepting service for the king. Meanwhile, the Brahmana Śrutadeva, it is Prabhupada mentions that Śrutadeva also was experiencing similar or same kind of experiences of ecstasy that the king was also experiencing. It is said that, he started, same thing was happening. The tears were flowing from his eyes. He was dancing in complete ecstasy and he went wild. And he completely lost track of time. He completely was, he for him, the real world didn't even exist. It was just him and Kṛṣṇa. That's it. It didn't matter what anyone else was thinking, saying. He was completely absorbed in the thought of Kṛṣṇa and serving Kṛṣṇa. And he was a very poor Brahmana. He only got, what was necessary. And it is said here that Śrutadeva, being not at all rich, offered only mattresses, wooden planks, straw carpets, and so on to his distinguished guests, Lord Kṛṣṇa and these sages, but he welcomed them to the best of his ability. He spoke very highly of the Lord and the sages, and he and his wife washed the feet of each one of them. He took water and sprinkled it all over the members of his family. And although the Brahmin appeared very poor, he was at that time most fortunate. After welcoming the Lord and his companions, according to his ability, according to the Brahmana's ability, he brought fruits, incense, scented water, scented clay, tulsi leaves, kusha straw, and lotus flower. They were not costly items and could be secured very easily, but because they were offered with devotional love, Lord Kṛṣṇa and his associates accepted them gladly. The Brahmana's wife cooked simple foods like rice and dal. These are all very simple foods that we all make with dal bhat, shak roti, sabji roti, dal bhat. Dal bhat every household has every single day. But Kṛṣṇa and his devotees were very pleased to accept it. And like this, Śrutadeva and his wife and his family were able to serve Kṛṣṇa and his guests. And Śrutadeva was thinking, how has it become possible that Lord Kṛṣṇa, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his associates, the great sages, whose very presence makes a place as sanctified as a pilgrimage site, have agreed to come to my place? It's amazing, actually. Because the Lord is equal to everyone, as he says, but according to the reciprocation, according to the surrender of the soul, Kṛṣṇa accordingly reciprocates. And then after Prabhupada describes the different services, the different things he offered to Kṛṣṇa, the Brahmana offered to Kṛṣṇa, then there's many prayers and what time is it? Kṛṣṇa? 8:27. Okay. There's many prayers and many different realizations that the Brahmana is telling to Kṛṣṇa. And Śrutadeva, the Śrutadeva Brahman is telling Kṛṣṇa basically of, how I've been entrapped in this material world, how I've been caught up in household life, how I've been completely controlled by this illusory potency. Of course, he's not, he's a pure devotee of the Lord, actually. Someone experiencing, pure symptoms of bhakti is not within the condition. It's not conditioned by the three modes of material nature. How is it possible that in some random city, in some random home, I'm some random person, you came to this city and you're here at my house and I'm having the opportunity to serve you, but not serve you, but also serve, all of your associates. Because right, we see that the king and the Brahmana were not just serving Kṛṣṇa. We read names like Narada Muni, Śrutadeva Goswami, Vyasa, Parashuram. We read all these names. Not Parshuram, like the Parshuram. I'm not sure if it's Parshuram, the Parshuram, or like another rishi named Parshuram. But we see how Kṛṣṇa is being served by all these devotees. And the Brahmana, why I'm taking the example of the Brahmana is because none of us are as rich as the king. The king is obviously, very, very opulent and can serve Kṛṣṇa properly. The reason I'm stressing more on the Brahmana is because, it's something, it's more of a quality of compassion that we can have, because the Brahmana who's very poor, he doesn't have much, someone like him who's able to serve Kṛṣṇa very nicely. How come Kṛṣṇa has come to his house? Because of his loving devotional service. And the last bullet point here in the lessons learned is that qualification of these two great souls is purity. And above that, I quoted again from a paragraph. My dear Śrutadeva, you may therefore accept all these great saintly persons, brahmanas and sages, as my bona fide representatives. By worshipping them faithfully, you will be worshipping me more diligently. I consider worship of my devotees to be better than direct worship of me. If someone attempts to worship me directly without worshipping my devotees, I do not accept such worship, even though it may be presented with great opulence. So this is also another very important point that we see, that because Kṛṣṇa was there with his devotees, and when we're talking about these devotees, we're talking about these devotees who are acting as spiritual masters, who are connected to Kṛṣṇa. Because the king and the Brahmana were able to serve such great personalities as well, Kṛṣṇa was very much happy, and he very much accepted their service. And Prabhupada also goes on to explain how, qualification is really, really important. He talks about, how
qualification. It's not by birth. Just because, your dad's a doctor doesn't mean you're going to be a doctor. Just because your dad's in IT doesn't mean you're automatically going to be in IT. You have to work for it. You need to get your college degree for it. And you also need to like what you're doing. Of course, what we like is not necessarily practical in today's day and age unless you're smart enough to make it happen. And if Krishna's favor is there upon you. But the point is that you have to become qualified by activities. You have to show, that you're worth something. You have to actually have those qualities related to, being either a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or working as, um, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, or yeah, that's what I mean. So you have to have those qualities. Um, and the number one quality that both of these two personalities had was purity. They were very pure. It doesn't matter whether you're Shudra. Prabhupada says in Prabhupada, he mentioned in this chapter that in Kali Yuga, everyone is Shudra. Everyone is Shudra. None of us are qualified to act as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. Maybe there may be some rare people, but really what Krishna is looking for is directed love. He's looking for purity. That's what he's looking for. And because of our genuine sincerity and purity to serving Krishna, then only Krishna will reciprocate with us. And especially when we show that sincerity, to Krishna's devotees, when we serve Krishna's devotees. And when Krishna's devotees are pleased, then automatically Krishna is pleased, right? As we know. So this principle of cultivating purity is very important. And the first bullet point, Arjuna executing Krishna's desire, like I mentioned from the first story of kidnapping Subhadrā Devi. If you read that chapter, it may seem like Arjuna was a very lusty guy, went after Subhadrā Devi, couldn't stop looking at her, was thinking of her 24/7. Actually, Prabhupada explains it like that. Yeah, like he was not lusty, but like, yeah, Arjuna was thinking of Subhadra Marani all the time, and his mind was getting restless, and XYZ. But we have to also remember that who's Arjuna. Look at Arjuna's qualification. Look how close Arjuna is to Krishna. Look at Arjuna's purity, right? Why did Krishna tell Arjuna why did Krishna tell Arjuna the Bhagavad Gita? Because Arjuna was Krishna's very dear and close friend, completely surrendered. Very dear and close friend, Arjuna Saka, right? So if there's one thing we should learn from the second story especially, is to see the purity of the Brahmana, to see his selflessness, to see his selfless seva bhav, to serve Krishna and his devotees. So these are the two stories for today. It is 8:32. I hope some of you are able to understand the story, and some of you will apply the lessons and really focus on cultivating purity, especially it's the time of Kartik. So this is this is actually a big discount sale. 1,000 times during Brahma Muhurta, 1,000 times 1,000 times if you do your chanting during Brahma Muhurta during Kartik month. And if you live in the Dham mentally or physically also, then you also get 1,000 times. You get so many times the benefit as well. And some of the devotees have actually gone to the Dham. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Please forgive me if I said something wrong or if I've offended anybody by saying such things. Thank you. Hare Krishna. If anybody has one or two questions, we can take it now quickly.
Hare Krishna, Mahaprem. Thank you for such enlightenment, Prabhu. It was such so many important lessons you explained so nicely, Prabhu. So if anyone has any comments or questions, they can unmute or they can put in the chat box. Meanwhile, devotees ask, I have one question too. So you explained that we need to surrender, and then especially in this Kartik month, we need to imbibe all these qualities. So can you just give your any of realization where surrendering to Krishna really helps us in our devotional service? Any of your practical examples, bro?
I have practical examples because I myself am not surrendered. So, but Sripad Arindra Prabhu says one point that Gaurnitai don't even expect you to become perfect. We're talking about these two personalities, Śrutadeva and Bahulāśva. They were they were perfect devotees. They were on the platform of ecstasy, on the platform of bhava, prema, which is why Kṛṣṇa was so willing to reciprocate with them. We don't have that, and because we are all Shudras in Kali Yuga, and because we're all very fallen, it's very tough to reach that high level, But what we can do, as Śrīpārayendra Prabhu says, that Gaurnitai, because they are our Ishtadev, they are the avatar for Kali Yuga, is that Gaurnitai, they don't expect you to be perfect. They just want to see you try. And this is where the principle of sincerity comes, right? Don't worry about, I have, we wake up sometimes in the morning and it's like, oh my God, like I have to achieve Kṛṣṇa prema, and you think of bhav and asa, you think of high levels of devotional service that you have to achieve, because surrender will only come when our anarthas are declining, when they're deteriorating. You cannot just, otherwise it's like false surrender, right? But when we talk about surrender, we're going to talk about surrender on the platform of these personalities. But yes, of course, based on whatever we can, however much we can surrender, that much Kṛṣṇa will reciprocate, right? We have to become greedy to want devotional service, to want to experience, to have taste in devotional service, especially chanting the holy name, especially in this month of Kartik. So that's the main thing. You just have to really show Kṛṣṇa your sincerity. That's all I can say. And naturally, Kṛṣṇa will give you the purity. With sincerity will come purity.
Thank you, Ru, for such a wonderful answer. Any of the devotees, any questions? So let us unmute and thank you, Mahaprem Kirtan, with one loud Hari Bol. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
We'll be continuing tomorrow at 8 o'clock, and tomorrow Sankati Kaur Mataji will be sharing the nectar. So request all devotees to join tomorrow 8 o'clock in the morning. Thank you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.